Tonight, I brush up on my Latin. At 2 Parker, Zach teaches us how to play blackjack.
Deal with the cards you're dealt, right?
And college game day comes to town.
Not so fast, my friend! Alright, and welcome to episode 3 of Who Cares You Suck, the one and only M-SABR Dynasty Hockey Podcast. I'm Greg, with me as always are Parker and Andrew, and how we feeling today, boys?
Feeling good. Feeling great. I'm excited for the season. We're sitting just 1 week away from the start of a new hockey season, and boy, I'm just stoked. What about you, Parker?
Yeah, as Michael Bublé would say, and I'm feeling good. So, yeah, hockey season's right around the corner here. We got a week to go. Excited for fantasy to get underway. We got a good episode on tap. Kind of going to go over projections here, so I'll let you take it away, Andrew or Greg.
Yeah, I can definitely get us started here. Before we get into our season projections and predictions, we'll do a little fast react to what's been happening in the world of Dynasty hockey in the last couple of months post expansion draft. But we had a draft of our own, and I guess we'll just kind of have a look at how that shook out. We'll have Zach Betron on here in just a few minutes, but I think before he gets on, we can kind of have a look at how it all shook out.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Betron kind of shocked the world when he didn't go Michigan at first overall, and instead of Owen Power and Matty Beniers, he took William Eklund of the Sharks at number 1.
Did he shock the world? I know, Greg, I know you wanted William Eklund, and I also was going to take William Eklund.
I wanted Eklund, but I wanted him at 5. You wanted Eklund, but you picked at 7. So just because we wanted him doesn't mean you thought we could have gotten him. Or
just kind of recapping it though. I think it's a great pick, and like you said, Andrew said, we'll have him on the show here, and we'll kind of get his insight behind it. But like you said, yeah. I think it was a great pick. I think he's got definitely a ceiling in the NHL, and I think he can definitely be superstar caliber. Just about a matter of time and when it will happen. I don't think it's going to happen the first couple of years, but I think it was a good pick, and I think it was kind of a good idea to go away from all the Michigan boys.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what Zach has to say about that. But speaking of Michigan boys, we had 4 of them go up in the top 6. And then we had another Michigan boy taken 7th overall in Simon Edvinsson. Even though he didn't go to Michigan, he's going to play there soon enough. How did you feel about that pick, Parker?
I think it'll be a good pick. I'm excited to see how it shaped out. I mean, like you said, I kind of had my whole draft board planned out, and then Eklund went first, and then, the other names just started falling, and, it's kind of just scramble time. But I think it'll shape out nicely. I'm excited to see, kind of where he goes. And like I said, hopefully he's got a ceiling in the NHL. I'm not sure how high it will be, but I guess time will tell. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of guys who fell a long ways, let's talk about the Wall himself, Jesper Wallstedt. Many thought he was the number 1 goalie prospect coming into this draft. He was the second goalie not only off of the real-life draft board, but off of our own M-SABR draft board. Sebastian Casa of the Red Wings went to Evil at 11, and then Andrew sprinting in from the green room to take Wallstedt at 12. Run me through your mind there, Andrew. What were you thinking about that?
I was just happy to get him. I thought both goalies would be gone by the 8th pick, so I think it was kind of a treat for both the Evil Corporation and myself to walk away with a couple of great goalies, hopefully that are coming out of this draft. I mean, they went with the Yzerplan method, which isn't something, that I can laugh at. I think Kosa's going to be an excellent goalie. But at the same time, I was happy with Wallstedt. If I were in their place, I probably would have gone with Wallstedt. And we'll see, because, Minnesota's tried this year in and year out over the last 20 years or so, where they try to draft their number 1 overall goalie. They play him for a couple years, and then they end up moving him away, and it's happened quite a few times. So hopefully Wallstedt doesn't fall into that cycle, and he can really establish himself as a true, if not, rock solid number 1 fantasy option. At least a starting goalie for Minnesota. A couple other things.
Well, listen, he's definitely got a big ceiling, that's for sure. I mean, I was so enamored with him. I tried very hard to move up into the first round again to try and nab him after I took Grant Clark. I even considered going with Wallstead at 5 if Clark weren't available. I like Clark. I think he's got a very high ceiling. I probably would have taken him over the two Michigan defensemen, but don't let the don't let the fine people at the University of Michigan hear about that, or I'll be kicked out of the Alumni Association. But, I think, there was a lot to be happy about for everyone in this draft. There were no real surprise picks. I think people did a good job of making sure the talented players wound up in a good spot. I mean, I'm looking at Mason McTavish, the third overall pick in real life, going to Zach at 10. That's a sharp pick. Got Dylan Gunther going to Cam. That's a really good pick there. Chaz Lucius is going to be something. Even Atu Rati only lasted until 15.
Yeah, Parker picking up
Indeed.
who many thought was going to be the number one pick before he had kind of a dud season before the draft. But I think, the Islanders are going to give Roddy a lot of time to develop. But once he gets into the league, I think he might have a real gem up the middle there, Parker.
Well, let's hope that's the case. I mean, that's kind of my thought right now, kind of behind the season, behind the draft is I've got a strong team now. I'm not really looking more on the younger side. I've got a couple of solid veterans in the team. But at some point, all those guys are going to retire. So, like you said, he could have been the top pick until it kind of his dud season last year. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how he plays at the next level. I mean, it's a jump for everyone. It's different than college, different than juniors. So, like kind of the similar story with everything we've been saying. We'll see what the ceiling is, and only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a guy that a lot of people had their eyes on. I was looking at him at 17. I know Andrew is trying to line something up for him.
Yeah.
A deal with me that is for him at 17, which I probably would have not taken. I mean, once 17 rolled around anyway, I wasn't able to do any trades, so I drafted myself a guy I hope will end up being a Tom Wilson type player, but more on him later. We got some fast reacts there. Let's see what else there is to talk about. What do you got for us, Andrew?
Yeah, let's keep rolling. There were a couple of trades made on that same day, with 4 teams involved in 2 trades here, and in total 10 players were moved. So 10 players moving around on draft day, right before the draft. But funny enough, no picks. We'll start with the first one that happened, and it's the Hanson brothers sending Elias Lindholm and Jeff Petrie to Jesse's Girls for Torey Krug, Patrick Hornqvist, and Alex Barré-Boulet. Walk us through your mindset there, Parker.
So, Torey Krug had been on the block for me I'd pretty much say since pretty much after I drafted him last season.
Yeah.
I've never been really the fondest of Torey Krug, and I mean, sure, he's a great defenseman with St. Louis, and he's definitely a star-studded player. But I really didn't like him and his fit in my team. So, I talked to Andrew about this a lot. I've talked to Greg a lot about this. Just where was the right place where he would land, and what could I get in return? And I finally found that deal in getting Jeff Petrie and Lindholm back, and I just feel like that was just a great deal. It dumped off not only Torey Krug but Patrick Hornqvist. Who's really getting to the very last legs of his career. So. I'm eliminating some older players and bringing in some nice scoring potential with Lindholm and another great defenseman and Jeff Petrie. So I think it was a great deal. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see how both of their seasons play out. And like I said, I mean, I think it was a win on both sides. But obviously, I'm going to say I feel like I won the trade. But there's positives to be had on both sides. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I like Elias Lindholm. And now you do get rid of Patrick Hornqvist, but sorry to butt in here, but I do have to say, Jeff Petrie isn't too young himself, so maybe not really getting all that much younger. But I would like just to give a shout out to Jeff Petrie, one of many hockey players from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So didn't go to Michigan, but Parker getting himself at least some tie to Ann Arbor as he's getting an old offensive defenseman and what I think is a really good center in Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, he's getting another Michigan guy who didn't go to Michigan, kind of like Sebastian Casa hopefully will be. Who knows? Eisman might move him. But yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Torey Krug shapes up his second year away from Boston. I know he didn't inspire too many with his play last year, but he's still a very talented player, and got to think he'll put it together soon. out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's move on to our next trade, though. We've got the other member of the three of us here. We've got our Temmie's Breadman. Andrew sending Philip Forsberg, David Perron, and Dylan Cousins to Connor's team, the Infinity Stromes, for Shea Theodore and Zach Hyman. I think this is a fascinating deal, not only because you added a top deep man in Shea Theodore, who's fantastic, but because you traded away someone you traded for mid-season, and you traded him for a guy who started off on your team. You drafted him in the fantasy draft, let go of him, and now he's back on your team. Walk me through all the nuances of this deal, because I think it's amazing. A really, really fascinating piece of work here.
Philip Forsberg was a guy that really moved the needle for Connor. I originally offered, I was trying to offer Cousins away because I don't really have enough time to wait for him to develop. He's a fantastic player, but just having him in Buffalo is going to hurt me as a contender right now. So I knew I could get some of his value remaining in trying to send him out for a defenseman. And I'd been talking with Connor on defenseman I'd been trying to get his defenseman since right after the draft. I was especially interested in Shea Theodore and in Morgan Riley. He ended up sending me Shea Theodore, which I was super excited about. I'm giving him David Perron, who's an aging asset, but still scored at a point per game this last year. And Philip Forsberg was just the piece that moved the needle. He's on a Nashville team that doesn't really look like they're going to be great this upcoming year. They're kind of selling, so I was like, I think this might end up working out for me. And to get Zach Hyman, A Michigan guy, and B, in Edmonton, and at that point in time, I knew he'd either be playing next to Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Turns out he'll be playing with McDavid and Puljujärvi, God bless, to start the season. So I'm just excited to see what comes out of that. So I think it was a pretty even trade. I think in terms of value, Connor got more, but these are guys that are either aging in David Perron or on not as good teams. So again, I'm just trying to go for it all next year. So hopefully Shea Theodore and Zach Hyman can be a part of that successful team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much of it, it's a question of talent versus placement. And, a guy like Zach Hyman, who's going to end up playing with an all-world talent, you got to jump on that, especially when the guys you're sending are someone who's on just a very uninspiring Nashville team, or the dumpster fire that is Buffalo. I mean, how many good players on the Buffalo Sabres can you name right now, gun to your head? Right, I've got Victor Olofsson, and then just sort of
Rasmus Dahlin.
We'll see what happens with Rasmus Dahlin.
Cody Eakin.
It's
Craig Anderson.
The situation in Buffalo is such that it takes good players and it depresses their value pretty heavily.
No, right? It is pretty depressing playing in Buffalo, I'd have to say.
Yeah, but. When the best thing you can do is the ambiance and decor at the local Applebee's, you're going to want to get out of Buffalo, and you're going to want to get your Buffalo players. Either you get them out of Buffalo or you get them out of your team. So credit to you for getting that player from Buffalo out of your team.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see. I think Dylan Cousins has a good shot to end up being the guy in Buffalo. He's been heralded as a top prospect for quite a while now. So definitely a good move from Connor to a team that came, I think, in 9th last year, and is still looking to add to that offensive talent. So he's got the guy in Nashville and Philip Forsberg, and he might have the guy in Buffalo in Dylan Cousins. So totally. I think it was a good trade on paper, but
it was another win-win.
Yeah. But who knows until the season starts.
Yeah,
everything we've said.
Yeah.
The last couple episodes. It's just time will tell. Time will tell how everyone performs, where everyone goes. So like I said, I'm excited. 1 week away now, so we're getting down to the grind time.
I think bottom line is Connor traded a couple sure assets for guys with a little more upside.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's a bad move. It's a good move to be making in his position.
I was going to say, especially if you're in Connor's position, where a lot of people have tabbed the Infinity Stromes to have a breakout season this year. And, if you hit on some of those exciting guys with higher ceilings like Cousins and like Forsberg is going to be the guy, you add a sure-handed veteran in David Perron, this is very much a team that could go places.
And you got to think David Perron's playing with Ryan O'Reilly too, and those two
Yeah,
together have always been a good combination, and they'll be solid points for
absolutely.
both of those players there. So
Yeah, and if things don't work out for the Stromes, he can always sell off David Perron if he's having a good season and get some more value. I mean, that's the way it kind of works out when things don't go your way. So Connor's got a lot of options ahead
well,
of
and I
him.
want to I want to ask you, Andrew. I know David Perron had a huge season last year. I mean, he had quite a lot of goals, quite a lot of assists. I mean, I think it was probably one of his best seasons on record, even in the short season. What was your thought process besides trading someone? Did you just not see him performing to that same caliber this year, or
I didn't, and I think I kind of fall for it every year, in that I'm always like, as he keeps getting better and better, David Perron to me, I just don't know that I can keep buying into him. But I think I'm pretty confident in saying it this year more so than the last couple of years. Obviously, I ended up drafting him in our draft last year, so we'll kind of see how it turns out. But he's almost 34 now, so I think it's really only a matter of time for him because he's not really on the same level as your Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin. At the same time, I think he's still going to be a 60-point player this year, and he's a power play specialist. So
yeah.
that's a lot of value coming back to Connor, even if he only gets a year or two out of Perron.
Totally, totally. So I think that's probably a good point. We kind of talked about a little bit about the draft, a little bit about trades. Why don't we go ahead and bring on Zach here?
Yeah,
Get him on the show.
I just got confirmation from Zach that he's ready to go, so we'll bring him on in. All right. Well, we're pleased to welcome in our first guest to the show, Mr. Zach Betron. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you guys for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so happy to have you, and actually, it's kind of a treat that our first guest is the newest member of the M-SABR Dynasty Hockey League, and really quite the lineup you've been handed down. I mean, it's maybe a little less than impressive, but some of the moves you made so far really point towards a bright future. How do you sort of plan for a team's future when you're handed something less than ideal?
Well, you gotta deal with the cards you're dealt, right? So I obviously can't control what roster I inherited, but first time I saw the roster, I looked through it and I see obviously it's in need of rebuilding. This was my mindset at the time. I think it was about week 10 or so, and let's just say I wanted to go in a younger direction, get rid of some of the older guys, stockpile picks and stuff like that. So really primarily building around guys like Matt Barzal, Kale McCarr, and just trying to get overall younger. And if a few of the prospects I'm dealing for and younger guys, if they turn out to be studs, 2 years down the line, hopefully that's the window. That's when it starts. So fingers crossed. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of your trades that you made right before the deadline actually looked pretty good. Picking up Travis Konechny, picking up Owen Tippett, picking up Robert Thomas, and a couple of picks along the way. I think those are pretty good. And they ended up to be pretty much win-win at the time, right, Greg?
Yeah, I'd say they were. I mean, Dougie Hamilton came with a steep price, but it was a price I was happy to make as I was trying to fight my way into the playoffs. I mean, Konechny was a surefire talent, absolutely, but I felt that defenseman was a higher position of need, and a guy like Hamilton's really going to thrive wherever he goes, whereas I was a little disappointed in the supporting cast surrounding Konechny last year. And the same thing with Tippett, where he's a top prospect, but he hasn't done anything as of yet in the league. So I feel like it makes perfect sense to go up like a 23-year-old winger and another prospect to get one of the top defensemen when one team is trying to make a playoff push and the other one is trying to stockpile picks and just set themselves up in a better position 2 years down the road. It's a trade I made happily then, and I think I would make it pretty happily now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my trade, I mean, picking up Philip Forsberg, but sending out Robert Thomas, a good Oilers prospect in Dylan Holloway, and a second-round pick was certainly maybe a bit of a tough call to make at the time, but I would have done it again. I mean, it ended up bringing me to the championship, and it ended up giving Zach maybe a lottery ticket still in in Robert Thomas and a couple more in whoever he used the pick on and Dylan Holloway. But I'll turn the mic over to you, Zach, one more time. What do you think is sort of the strongest point of your team, and what do you think is the weakest point of your team going into this next season?
That's a great question. I do want to point out probably the weakest point first of all, and hopefully, go worst to best, so that way it looks better leading out of this conversation. But obviously, I think my defensive core needs the most work. I've got Kale McCarr, Matt Dumba, Nick Leddy, Esa Lindell, and Rasmus Ristolainen. Those are some of my top guys. And in short, I looked at my roster, realized that, going back to the Dougie Hamilton deal, maybe at the time I should have paid a bit more attention to, depth rather than, pointing towards the future. But I do agree with Greg. It was more of a win-win, and I would do that trade again. But gotta start rebuilding the defensive core, primarily shaping it around McCarr, and even possibly Dumba as well. Moving on up, I'd probably say my centers are probably the strongest point of my team. Matt Barzal, Sidney Crosby, and then Andrew, I know you mentioned Robert Thomas. I'm looking for him to have a pretty big bounce back year. He didn't play too much this past season, and when he did play, I feel like he kind of underperformed compared to where he was, and where his potential is. But he's still young. He could still, move up in the St. Louis Blues depth chart. And yeah, other than that, I do want to point out, pretty reliant on Brock Besser this season. I'm hoping he can kind of bounce back. He had kind of a not his best season last year compared to what he had about a year or two before with Pettersson, but definitely another pretty big point that I'd like to kind of center around given his age.
Well, I kind of want to hop in here. I was going to ask, Zach, so I know you kind of just laid the team out on the line and kind of said, your strengths and weaknesses. Are you looking to make any moves? I know you're in that rebuilding phase right now. Are you looking to make any moves before the season? Are you looking to strengthen any positions before the season? Are we gonna, your kind of thought process behind is maybe wait a few months and then kind of see where to go from there? Or like I said, just do it now?
I think primarily my thought process is probably the earliest I would do something is 2 to 3 weeks into the start of the season. Just given the fact that yes, the team is very young, but that means there's a lot of unproven talent. I think my window to win is either starting next year or the year after, but if for some, streak of luck, they start to perform well to start the season, and I see, hey, maybe I can, flip one of my older guys for defenseman or something like that. Definitely something I would look into, but if I start out 0-3 to start the year, I'd definitely look into keeping most of the younger guys, stockpiling more picks, prospects, and stuff like that. But before the season, I don't think I'm going to do anything. I'll probably stand pat unless there's an offer that comes to the table and knocks my socks off. But yeah.
Yeah, I will say you can't. First of all, you can't give up on a slow start to the season. I know that probably more than anybody. Starting 0-4-1 last year, so you can't give up too early. But at the same time, it seems there are so many changes across the league that it's really going to be interesting to see where people settle in. I mean, you got Eberle, who just moved to Seattle. You've got Nick Leddy, who just moved to Detroit. You have a lot of these changes. Val Nichushkin moving up to the second line in Colorado to start the season is what it all looks like right now. But I mean, those are pretty significant changes in, Robert Thomas coming off injury, Vancouver coming off a bad year. It really, I think, could be anybody's game. And, just based on how hockey works, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up sneaking into the sixth position, breaking into the playoffs this year. I don't know necessarily that it's a cup contending team, but with a lot of these teams still looking pretty even, I think it could be anybody's game. I don't know what you guys think, Greg and Parker. As we're looking at the biggest teams in a whole, I'm kind of scared to face just about every team in this league, and if I catch Zach on a week where where Vancouver plays 4 times or where Pittsburgh plays 4 times, then I'm gonna start to worry about that matchup too, So any given week, maybe is
I'll kind of
kind of a
build off of that.
cliche.
I was gonna say it's just every team, like Andrew said, it's just every team. I've been kind of just before we hopped on today, I've been kind of just browsing around, looking at every team, looking at the projections, and every team is just you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, they have these players and they can do this much and they're projected for this many points, and you're like, when I play them that week, I'm gonna be freaking out. So it's like you said, there's not one. I don't really think weak team in this league right now. I think all teams are strong. Everyone's got decent rosters. So yeah, like you said, I think it's just like kind of how you pointed out. You've got more Pittsburgh players going, you got more Vancouver players going on a given week. I mean, that could very well say how your week goes. So I don't know how do you feel about that? But
yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything to say that hasn't been said before. We've seen last year, this is a league where it's really about who gets hot at the right time. Andrew assembled a team that was underperforming at the start of the year, still managed to get it together in time to go on a run where he looked untouchable. I mean, I was unfortunate enough to have stood in his way the last couple of weeks of the regular season and get my doors blown off. And, this is a team that I don't want to say I returned the favor to him early on week 1, but I definitely won that one pretty comfortably. So it's all, I mean, it's a big give and take league. Everyone has their own strengths, their own weaknesses, and really it'll come out to whether your position group punches above their weight in a given week, or if they maybe falter a little. I mean, I'm going to live and die by my defenseman this year. So if all of a sudden a guy like Hamilton, a guy like Chikrin starts not feeling it in the stat sheet, I'm going to be in a very vulnerable position. And, some other team like Connor's team, which looks incredibly good, or like Cam's team, which is also very dangerous. The 2 teams that were in the finals in Evil and the Breadmen can step up and take a spot that I, might have left vulnerable, or any other team for that matter.
Yeah, no, it's funny.
All about who gets hot.
It's funny you mentioned that because, Connor's team, I agree. I think they look pretty darn good. But Connor's team, finished 4-8-2 last year. So last year, maybe, a lot of teams might have overlooked them, but now threatening for the championship. But I do want to transition briefly the conversation for the second half. We kind of looked at a bit of a season preview for Zach, kind of goals into rebuilding, but he also had a pretty big decision to make just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that was in the prospect draft. So went first pick overall, and he didn't take Owen Power. Zach, walk us through that.
Yep, thank you for mentioning that. I, after a couple weeks of research leading into the draft, the consensus I was gathering was William Eklund is not someone you could pass up. William Eklund of Djurgården IF, I believe, in the Swedish Hockey League, drafted to the San Jose Sharks 7th overall this year. And yes, he's a little bit older than most of the other prospects in the draft pool this year, but just from watching his highlights, reading up on him, and really, getting a sense of what kind of player he is, another, not maybe one of my weaknesses, but another spot I would like to improve was my left wingers, and he's someone that he can shoot, he can pass. He's not quite a liability on defense, but he can definitely hold his own. But definitely an offensive dynamo, to say the very least, and someone I couldn't really pass up. Then again, I do understand Owen Power is Owen Power. And go blue, but he's defensemen are very uncertain, and just seeing everything with Eklund and seeing his potential to improve, he had probably the highest ceiling in my opinion of anyone in the draft. He's going to make an immediate impact just from what we've seen already in the preseason from the Sharks, and very happy with that selection. And I believe Power went about 5th overall. I could be wrong about that.
Power went third to Connor.
Did go third. Yep. So
Yeah.
And Zach, I was going to ask real quick here too. So I know you mentioned that he plays for San Jose. How do you feel about him? Kind of going into a certain like you said, almost like a superstar role in San Jose. How do you think he fits into that organization? Do you think his production might be not as high as foresee it will be in the next 5 years?
I think not given the. I do think it won't be as high this year compared to the next few years, but I don't think it's given the fact that his supporting cast isn't too successful. I think it's more going to be attributed to the fact that hey, he's a rookie this year. Rookies generally
Totally.
Don't perform too well, but I think in a sense of the fact that there's no one else around him, that might actually help boost his production given the fact that he's going to be the number one option. He's going to be on the power play. He's going to be first line most likely, if not first, probably second line, and then trending towards first towards the end of the year. But definitely looking for him to kind of take the bulk of that production in San Jose, given who's around him.
Yeah, Eklund's a special talent. I mean, I will say for the record that Eklund was number one on my draft board as well.
He was number one on my draft board as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there at 5. I was sitting there at 5, and I was hoping the first 4 picks in the draft would all be the Michigan men, and I could swoop in at Eklund. You dispelled that pretty quick, but I mean, for all the reasons you said, he's a guy who can contribute now. He's a special offensive talent who's going to contribute really well down the road, especially if San Jose puts together a capable team around him. I'm a little miffed at the disrespect he paid to Tomas Hertl, saying he's got no competent teammates, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, Eklund he's going to be a special talent. At least he profiles as a special talent. And I would not be at all surprised to see him, even if he has a Lafreniere or Jack Hughes-esque rookie year, he's going to develop quickly and easily slot into a top 6 role for years to come.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that's been said, except for the fact that Eklund being a number one pick. I tried to put myself in the shoes of picking first. I'm pretty used to picking early in M-SABR leagues. Just ask anybody. But I think I would have gone with Matty Beniers first overall. Not to say that Eklund was a bad pick. I think Eklund might well have the highest ceiling out of anybody here. I think Eklund and Beniers both have really bright futures as stars of their organization. Harder to say for Owen Power. Just I don't know if Buffalo can really have any stars of their organization. But I mean, once you get down to your Luke Hughes, your Kent Johnson, your Dylan Gunther, it starts to get a little more foggy. But I think those two guys were hopefully the consensus top two picks around, and Trent definitely made the right choice. But looking towards the second half of the draft, I think he did a nice job shoring up on the defense. I know you mentioned earlier defense is kind of a lottery ticket. I agree. Going with Carson and Corson. Carson Lambos, Corson Sulemans should be good lottery guys to watch as they kind of go through the ranks and develop themselves in each of their organizations. It'll be definitely fun to watch. And I think that's part of the fun of having a dynasty league with prospects. Sometimes you'll see these guys in preseason games and they'll score, and your heart will be warmed just a little bit. So hopefully they're just as fun to watch as Eklund will be.
I agree. Yeah. My mindset going in was, first overall pick, draft for best overall, and then back towards the second half and second round in the draft for need. And my need, like I mentioned a few times, is defense. So I figured it is a lottery. Let's see if we can hit on a few. So might as well. I will say, when I did make the trade with you, Andrew, that second round pick, I did not expect 24th overall. So congratulations to you. But
thank you.
Not too happy with that in hindsight. Hindsight's 20/20, but I was definitely expecting it to be in the 16 to 20 range. But that's a spread of 4 picks or so isn't too bad in the second round. Prospects very, very little. Once you get towards that range. But yeah.
If anything, it saved you the stress of beating the rush of typing into the prospect list as soon as that last pick goes in. You had your choice of anybody available, so maybe that makes it all a little more worth it.
It makes me happy I didn't include a second that you pressed me for in the Hamilton trade.
Oh, yep, that's a very good point as well. Yeah.
It was, because I think at that point, Andrew and I were in very similar situations, and you just bet on the wrong horse. Kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah. Oh well.
I want to go back on one thing here for Zach. I know we've kind of talked about every position except this one. Zach, your goalies. I know we kind of talked before even this podcast. Your goalie situation. I mean, you got Tuukka Rask, Carey Price, and then Georgiev. But we kind of talked about Tuukka Rask. He isn't getting the production he used to get. Carey Price is getting older. How do you feel? Or where do you think you stand goalie-wise going into this season? I know goalie stats are a big category in fantasy this year. That can really be the telltale sign of winning a given matchup. So how do you feel about that?
That's a very, very good point you bring up. Like you mentioned, I have Tuukka Rask, Carey Price, and Alexander Georgiev. When I inherited the roster, obviously I saw them and I figured Rask and Price are getting older. Granted, I didn't know that Price was going to go on this unbelievable run in the postseason and kind of have this resurgence. So I'm personally hoping that's going to carry through into next season as well, but that's neither here nor there. Him and Rask are obviously old. Tuukka Rask, very uncertainty, lots of uncertainty surrounding his free agency. Is he going to retire? Is he going to be with Boston, etc.? But just everything with those two, I do want to probably get one more younger goalie before that window opens for me. Whether that's through next year's entry-level draft or whether that's in a trade for a prospect goalie or a younger goalie. I certainly don't anticipate myself making any blockbusters for an already proven goalie, but given that Price and Rask are getting up there in age and there's a little bit of uncertainty with their futures, I do want to trend in the younger direction. But like I said, I anticipate my window to start about a year or two from now, so I have some time to kind of look around and snoop and see what people are willing to give up. And in terms of Georgiev, he's stuck behind Shesterkin right now. So he did have, not this past season, but the season before, he had a decent year being mentored by Hank. So I'm hoping that he can kind of either step up in the backup role with Shesterkin and maybe even earn himself a trade out of New York, to become a starter somewhere else. I know that's very, very, very unlikely, but that's kind of my thought process going into the season with that goalie trio.
Definitely, yeah. With goalies being such a big factor, they're kind of hard to ignore, even though they're sitting at the bottom of the roster. So, I wish you the best of luck in either drafting or trading. I know it's going to be kind of difficult to milk any value that remains out of Rask, at least while he's recovering from his surgery. But what a great conversation we've had. I really appreciate hearing your insight. Thank you so much. You're making history being the first guest on the podcast today, Zach. Any concluding thoughts on this little segment, Greg, Parker?
No, like I said, I think we kind of covered it all. I mean, just given the situation you've been handed, you've done a great job so far, kind of going in that rebuilding phase, and I'm excited to see what this season holds for you. And then even if you can be a contender this year, I mean, you never know. So, like Andrew said, thanks for hopping on with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a great insight into how you're handling filling the holes in the roster you were given, seeing how you can gloss over the ones that remain, and I wish you nothing but the best in the 20 weeks you don't play my team.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the time you've given me here, and if anyone has any young defensemen they're willing to part ways with, please shoot me a DM over Slack.
Miro Heiskanen.
Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
We'll
remember
talk.
when you tried to trade me the 13th pick in the draft for Moritz Seider?
I vaguely remember, and I'm ashamed to say I do.
That was good times.
Yeah,
Unfortunately for you, my guy was drafted the pick right before, but I guess that's a story for another time.
absolutely. Well, thank you
Uh,
again, guys.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Zach.
Hey, thanks for stopping by.
It was awesome to have you here as our first ever guest on Who Cares You Suck. We definitely care, and you definitely do not suck. Zach Betron, who's hoping to have his team break out in a big way, rebound from a pretty disappointing first year in the league. And in that vein, do we think he will? I want to go around the table real quick and hear what you guys have to say. I want you to pick one candidate who you think will break out. So, how about we start with you, Andrew?
Yeah. Breakout candidate. Honestly, I got to go with Trent here. I think he's got a lot of those guys that are getting pretty old. He's got Ovechkin, he's got Patrice Bergeron, he's got Roman Yossi, he's got Nicholas Backstrom. But if these guys can put together one good campaign this year, Trent's really gonna profit off of it. He beat me last year on a week where Ovechkin was cooking and Bergeron was cooking and Backstrom was cooking. And that really shows the peak of Trent's team. So I think once we get back into a regular season, a few less worries about COVID, and as long as these guys can stay healthy, I think Trent's going to have himself one heck of a year. Remember, he's still got Connor Hellebuck, and he's still got pretty important youth going in there. I think Capo Caco is an excellent breakout candidate. Johnny Gaudreau is going to have a bounce-back year. And I think on the D end, Keith Yandel might be a good power play contributor, even though his plus-minus might not be there. He's got Charlie McAvoy. He's got Mikhail Sergachev, Oliver Bjorkstrand being one of the guys up there in Columbus. I think it's a pretty scary roster, and I think his team has way more talent than his 5-7 record, or not his 5-7 record, than his 4-10 record last year showed. So I think over a 22-week season, he's going to be able to come up there with and maybe hit 500. I think he could be an 11-win team this year.
Bold. All right.
So
Totally.
pass it over to Parker here.
Yeah, totally. So kind of for a team, I mean, it's not really a breakout. I know Cam finished 5th place last year, but I think this year he can make it into that top 4, top 3. And I really just think that back to Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid is projected an insane amount of points this year, and he's not only got Connor McDavid. He's got a bunch of other players too, with that big
Greg
point
Marchand,
production.
Alex
John
Pietrangelo.
Perez. I mean, his team is stacked, and I think
Alex
his weakness.
Oh my goodness.
His weakness falls to his goalies. But I mean, if you got all those points and you're producing all those shots on goal, and you're winning all those other stats, I think his team is really, really strong, and I think he's got that potential to finish in the top 4 this year.
But it's hard. I think Cam is one more goalie away, because I think so too. In a league with four goalie categories, you cannot afford to punt 1, 2, even 3 of those categories in the hopes of, if you really want to go far into this league, or if you want to go deep into a playoff matchup. I mean, adding Linus Ullmark was a very big move, especially with all the uncertainty about Rask. But I just don't know if I can trust an aging John Gibson on a bad Anaheim team, or an unproven Capo Kahinen to really round out that position. If I'm Cam, I'm looking to add goalie help very early on this year if I want to go far.
Totally, but like I said, if he gets that goalie help, or if these goalies we're saying kind of older, haven't really proven themselves, what's to say they won't do that this year? And what's to say Cam runs the table? So, like I said, I think Cam, he's in a position where if he makes maybe just 1 or 2 moves, he could definitely be top of this league. But yeah, as of right now, I think that's what I have. Let's go ahead and flip it over to you,
Sure.
Drake. What do you got here?
Yeah, what do you got?
All right. Well, I might be that guy and talk about my own team, because I think that I was better than 7th place last year. I started out pretty strong, and I think that my young players like Suzuki are going to get better, while my older guys like Hamilton, say, are going to stay productive. But there's no fun in that. So the team I'm going to tap to break out, and the team that I'm frankly stunned you guys haven't tapped to break out, is Connor's team, the Infinity Stromes. I think Connor has put together a very, very solid team here. I mean, it starts at the top with David Pastrnak and Mikko Rantanen, and it doesn't really let up. He's got, I said this earlier on in the podcast, he's added some breakout candidates in Dylan Cousins, who might be the guy in Buffalo, in Philip Forsberg, who's the best player on a Nashville team, or one of the best players on a underwhelming Nashville team. But he's got a lot of good players, a lot of breakout candidates. His goalie situation is a little suspect now, but I mean, you've got Morgan Riley, you've got Adam Fox in the defensive core, you've got Jonas Donskoy, who's going to be asked to play a big role out in Seattle. You've got Jake Voracek, Chandler Stevens. It's a very, very solid team, and I think this is a team that can make a playoff push at the very least, if not a deep playoff push.
Yeah, no, they're very threatening. So deep at right wing, so deep on defense, and it's pretty intimidating. Now, can some of these guys repeat? Can Ryan Strome continue to play at the pace that he was earlier? How much more time does William Karlsson have, producing above 65 points? Can he do it again? Maybe not. But at the same time, he's got young guys with so much promise. Your Adam Fox, your Morgan Riley, and Mikko Rantanen.
Well, I just want to point out this right now. I don't think Adam Fox is posed to. He had a great season last year. I just don't know if he can. It's a longer season, but I don't know if he can, do that again.
I think from a fantasy perspective, he totally can. Look at the weapons you have on that top power play unit in New York. He's setting up both Zibanejad and Panarin and Ryan Strome, and one of probably Lafreniere and Kakko, and that's pretty intimidating, and it's pretty easy to rack up points when you're quarterbacking that power play.
And and Connor's got Strome and Lafreniere. He's got mad synergy.
Oh my goodness.
Connor's team is going to live and die with the New York Rangers this year. I don't think that's a bold prediction. I think that's a statement. If the Rangers, especially the Rangers top line, especially if the Rangers power play gels, if Lafreniere takes a step up and plays like the generational talent he appeared to be out of the draft, Connor is going to be a very scary team, and a team that is very well set up in the next years. So if I'm Connor, I'm watching every Rangers game on the edge of my seat, looking for the hints that the future is arriving sooner than expected.
Well, if you're Connor, do you also have to watch the Capitals? And obviously Connor's a Capitals fan, but he's got both of their goalies, so he's going to end up getting almost every start out of the Caps. And is that a risky strategy, or is that a good strategy? What do you think?
As someone who had two goalies on the same team last year, it is, you live and die with that team. It's only a strategy that's as good as that team's defense is good. I was lucky enough to have both Carolina goalies in a year where Carolina had one of the stoutest defensive fronts we've seen in, Dougie Hamilton and Jakob Slavin, and a lot of two-way forwards. Sebastian Aho is a guy who can do everything right both ways. If you have a team with a stout defense like that, then it's a fantastic strategy. If you have a team that the Capitals are so hard to predict, it seems like every year we're thinking this is the year that the wheels on the Magic Washington bus falls apart. It hasn't happened yet. So if you see a team you like, and if you see a defensive core you like, I would absolutely go for it. We'll see if it pays off for Connor.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the meantime, let's...
Why don't we do something like this? Why don't we say each of us go around, kind of go around the table again and pick your top three, like 1, 2, 3 finish standings, and then the bottom three. I feel like that would be kind of a interesting take, just to see... Yeah, to see who you think's going to finish in the top three and who's going to be in the bottom three.
Well, yeah, one team I'm looking at this year, Parker, is you to finish in the top three. How do you feel about your team's chances? I know a lot of teams in the prediction contest picked you to finish first overall. So how you feeling?
Well, kind of. Greg's been over in the last couple episodes as goalie stats are a huge part of our fantasy league, and I really do think, obviously, I've got the best goalie in the NHL with Vasilevsky, but I've also got Darcy Kemper coming in this very good, very strong Avalanche team, kind of assuming that role Grubauer had, and Grubauer had a great season last year. Darcy Kemper's pretty much the same type of goalie with the same type of team in front of him, so I think we're good there. And Mike Smith, even, I know Andrew keeps, he always hates on me for Mike Smith, and
He's
he
39.
says he's old, and
He's 39.
he says he sucks, and Mike Smith is going to go out there and prove Andrew wrong this year, and I think that's going to be a big part of why I'll be higher up in the league this year. I think my goalie stats will continue to impress this year. Not only that, I've made some additions, led the league in goals, I think, last year, and I think I'm pretty much smack dab on track to do that again this year.
All right, well, riddle me this. How do you plan with just 3 goalies to keep up with 4 goalie teams in terms of goalie volume stats?
Well, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to, the save percentage and the goals against averages. And, that 4 goalies, cool. I mean, you could have 4 goalies all you want. That could actually hurt your numbers, I feel like.
Yeah.
It can.
Rather
But so
than
If you've got a 1-2 punch as good as Kemper and Vasilevsky are going to be this year, then adding more guys to that can only hurt your rate stats.
So are you
And
okay
if
with
you've got-
splitting? Like going 2 and 2 in the
Totally.
goalie stats?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Andrew. If you're
And that's
guaranteed, not guaranteed, but Vasilevsky is as safe a bet as any to win GAA and save percentage any week in the calendar. And if you lead the league in goals again, as Parker did last year, then that really only gives you, your opponent, that is, only a couple of categories to push and stake a win that week. I think,
Well,
Parker,
Andrew, I
I
also
agree
wanna say
with
here-
you wholeheartedly, Parker. In fact, I think that your team is going to finish first this league this year.
I appreciate that, and I love to say that. I think top 3 at least for me, and I'll go back to what Andrew's saying. And Andrew's saying 4 goalie category, sure, or 4 goalie not category, but 4 goalies on your roster. Not many teams have 4 goalies on the roster, and that kind of goes back to the same. Andrew, I can flip the question around for you. If you're going to go and add a 4th goalie, then what about that one player? I don't care who it is. It could be a waiver wire person, but that one player that plays during the league, they're getting block shots, they're getting shots on goal. Heck, they might even get an assist or a goal. Now you're not getting that production from that one player you could have had, and now you're picking up another goalie. And like you kind of said, if that's the case, then you could flip your GAA and your save percentage stats, and it could ultimately hurt you.
That's a fair point. I think that's kind of where we come down to one of the big strategy questions. I'm perfectly happy playing it with 4 goalies this year because I like winning volume stats. And I was kind of forced into it last year when my goalies were horrible. I just had to kind of win on saves and try to get enough wins in a week. But I was able to trust my skaters enough to make up for that in terms of the scoring department. And I don't have a really hitty team. I don't have a really blocky team. But I was able to kind of go on a good streak where I would pick up at least, the goalie volume stats and then flip enough of the goals, assists, plus minus shots, and power play categories to kind of win a week. So, I mean, that's kind of my strategy going in this year, is punting 4 categories. So, and it's not necessarily punting. I don't have bad goalies, so it's not like I'm going out there and starting, a trio of John Gibson,
Martin Jones and Thomas Greiss.
Yeah, whoever's in goal for Arizona. So I feel a little better than that, but I think we're hitting on one of the key strategy differences in this league, and that's whether you hold 3 goalies or 4 goalies. But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I just want to point that out. That's like I really do think that could be like a whole separate episode for the podcast. I mean,
yeah, strategy.
Oh
my
is a huge part of this, and
no, because
like you said,
yeah.
it comes down to the owner. It really does. I mean, it's like, which categories do you feel your team's strongest in, and which categories do you think you can punt?
Yeah, and you have to have the confidence in being able to punt. But, I mean, we all know when we go up against a hitty team. I mean, the top 3 teams in hits last year were Evil, the Hanson brothers, and Alex Fisher's team. And they won hits almost every week. Yeah, you have to pick up a streaming hits guy like Ryan Reeves, God forbid, to try to compete in that category. So, yeah, it's one of the week-to-week strategy things that can make, do you get a sure category in hits and blocks, or do you spend points on points?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who spent a lot of time streaming last year, I will say that points is a very tough category to predict, and hits and blocks, you sort of know what you're getting on a given week. That being said, I was a little lucky last year in that I was able to play off the prospect wire a little bit with Alex Nedeljkovic coming up and down, Jake Bean coming up and down. I might I won't have that luxury with Nedeljkovic this year. I probably won't with Bean, even as Moritz Seder comes up, and I've got Gustafsson on the prospect list, but it'll be tough for me to try to shuffle him back and forth. And is it even worth it if he's playing goalie on a mediocre at best Ottawa team? We talk about regression candidates. My team might be that way if Nedeljkovic doesn't figure it out or doesn't build off of what he did in Carolina now that he's more or less expected to be the guy in a much worse Detroit team. So that's going to be what I'm going to be most apprehensive about. I will also say that stacking 4 goalies instead of 3 isn't as much of an issue for Parker, considering that Vasilevsky is going to start almost every game for Tampa.
That's true.
And you don't get that luxury.
And same with Darcy Kemper there, too.
Exactly. You don't get that luxury with too many other goalies. And it's one of the very few clear-cut, not even just 1A situation, but just number 1 goalie and then start some guy every 5th game to give Vasilevsky a break from carrying the team on his back.
Yeah.
Well,
no, let's but
yeah, I said I projected Parker to finish first in this league, and I'm gonna stand by that. I'm gonna
totally,
say
and
that,
I'll kind of pass the horn to.
I was gonna go through my other 2 real quick if you didn't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Back to the old top 3.
We'll do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Parker, who led Cam, was doing a great job of putting the Rado categories. Parker was always near the top of those, even as he wasn't getting the results week to week. I think this is the year that he regresses positively to perform the way the Rado team he did on Rado. I'm going to say that rounding that out are going to be the champion and runner-up last year. In that, Evil is still a very good team. I think they finished 3rd. And I think that Andrew only improved this offseason. Will it be enough to catch up to what I think is a superpower in a league where goalies are king? That's anyone's guess, but I've got Jesse's girls winning this year.
Yeah. That's not a cold take. We just had our prediction contest, and we've got 10 entries so far, and of those 10 entries, 4 of them picked Parker to go all the way this year. So
I was one of them.
It's not an uncommon take.
Yeah, so let's hear who you've got, Andrew.
Top 3.
Yeah, my top 3. I've got in no particular order. I've got myself. I've got Evil. And I'm going to go crazy, and I'm going to say, if everybody stays healthy, Jesse's girls. I
thought you were going to say someone like Dyer McCarr or something.
Yeah. Well,
Andrew really went out on a limb here and picked all three of the teams.
Yeah,
I just don't. I went first.
I'll follow the exact suit, and in no particular order as well. I had the same exact three as Andrew. I've got Andrew's team, I got Evil, and then I got my team.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's that 4th, and I think that 4th could be Cam, but only time will tell on that one. And then kind of flipping the question, I know I said pick your top 3. Who do you think is going to finish the bottom 3? No particular order, but who do you think the bottom 3 teams are going to be this year, guys?
I can go first.
Go for it, yeah.
We love Zach Betron. Great guy. He's on the right plan, but boy, was he handed a bad hand. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You got to spend some time on the bottom and rebuild. And I think Zach Betron's going to be a bottom 3 team. But I like the bright spots on his team, so we'll make it a little positive twist. So I got Zach Betron down in the bottom 3. I've got Yuki's team in the bottom 3 because I think a lot of his guys are going to end up getting injured this year, because of course they will. I like some of the guys on Yuki's team, but I just have a kind of an ominous feeling, sort of a Friday the 13th and you're walking under a ladder sort of thing. But on the other hand, maybe not, but I just don't think Drew Doughty will continue to impress. I think Rupe Hintz is going to end up playing like 40 games this year because he's going to break his wrist. And I mean, he has Jack Eichel, who might not even play this year. And that's a big part of his team because that's the guy he drafted, 5th? Fourth, yeah, and that's just hard to swallow. And then I think if we look at what happened last year, I think Team Shaw will finish in the bottom three. It's a 22-week season, so forgetting to set your lineups is a big thing. So hopefully this doesn't happen. But the way Team Shaw kind of went on a big losing streak, it was like a 6-week losing streak after starting out like 5-0-1. So if that sort of thing continues to happen, then it's just going to be tough to watch. At the same time, Shea Weber out for the year. Big question mark in both Ben Bishop and Braden Holtby, as they're 2 of like 4 goalies competing to play in Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
And then that kind of leaves.
They're not even competing for that goalie 1 role either.
No, and that leaves him with 2 solid starting goalies, and that's not enough. So I think it might be a tough year out of Team Shaw.
Totally. Great. You want to go ahead or you want me to run it real quick?
I think you'll run it.
Totally. So I've got, like Andrew said, I think, not to say anything against Zach's team, like we said, he's been dealt a team, he's working to get it to the right place where it needs to be, and I think he's doing a great job of it. I just don't see him, finishing pretty high up on the standings this year. I'm going to have to go also with Andrew and Saha's team. I just don't think, like, for every reason we listed, I just don't think it has the potential this year. And finally, Greg, I know you're going to hate me. Got you rounding out that top 3 on the bottom.
Wow.
I kind of went into a bold projection.
He's going to prove you so wrong.
I know he is, and I know there's so much that can come out of this. And Greg, your team has Greg, your team has a ton of potential. I just don't know if it's all going to come together this year.
Oh my goodness.
And I'll leave it at that. And like I said, I hope, and I'm honestly, for your sake, for my sake, I hope I'm wrong. I hope your team is excellent this year. But as of right now, like I said, I just don't think every piece has fallen into place quite yet. I think you're on the brim of breaking out and becoming that top 13 in the league, but just not yet, unfortunately. And you can just roast me as much as you want, but that's my take since this whole projection thing came.
Greg's about to change who he has winning the league.
He totally can. I'm totally okay with that. I mean, like I said.
No. I think that Jesse's Girls is going to win the league, and that's partly because that is a good team, and that is partly because friends have each other's backs and support each other.
Craig, it's not that.
And that is the opposite of what you have done, Parker.
No.
I think I'm going to.
No, it's okay.
Greg.
I think I'm going
Greg,
to.
it wasn't that deep.
For a couple minutes.
No, look. Here's the thing. Leave it all on the podcast. Parker bringing out the knife and at 2 Parker. But, geez, November 15th to 21st. Save the date.
Save the date.
The matchup of the year, as Greg's team is going to take Parker's team out 12-0.
I think we just had a new rivalry
transgression. Oh my gosh. I disagree. Like, that's just a comical take.
I don't know.
Out of left field.
Shit, I think me finishing first is a comical take. I don't think I'm going to finish first. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think top 3, sure. Not first. No way. Not with some of the other teams, but
I just don't see it. I don't see any reason for this to happen.
So, Parker, I'm going to let Andrew jump to my defense more thoroughly because it'll sound less egotistical if it comes from him. But I will say that, I finished 500 last year, and I started off pretty strong. Yeah. I will also say that I think it isn't outside of the realm of the possibility for me to finish low this year, but I don't think it's for the reasons you're explaining. I think that what I've got is a team that is pretty solid on the skaters front, but if you look at goalies, I have 2 pretty big regression candidates and Igor Shesterkin. Alex Nedeljkovic, I said he did really well in Carolina, but any goalie can do well in Carolina if they've got Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Slavin, all those big bodies on the blue line to help them out. and that helped Mrazek out to the tune of a career year. That helped Nedeljkovic out to the tune of a top 3 Calder finish. So now that Mrazek is in Toronto getting paid like a starter, how is he going to do? You know, if he falters, he very well could lose the job to Jack Campbell, and then I'd be stuck with an expensive goalie too. Nedeljkovic is going to, like, there's no one else in Detroit, but that's going to get Nedeljkovic a lot of starts. But the other issue is there's no one in Detroit. I mean, SABR can come up, but he's only one guy. It's not Carolina there, not by a long shot. And while Detroit is going to be good for sure in the next couple of years, they're not going to be good this year. And that's going to hurt every Nedeljkovic stat. And then Igor Shesterkin, he was hurt for a large stretch of last year, and I really, really struggled in that stretch. I dropped a ton of matchups, and I hope that Igor Shesterkin is not going to get the label injury prone, because I drafted him to be my franchise goalie, and if that happens, it would be, I think, Shesterkin getting hurt would be devastating to me this year. I was able to recover from it last year in a limited extent. I don't think I have the capacity to do that this year. So unless I go out and trade for a top goalie, I think that that's going to pretty much sink my hopes before they begin. Again,
like I said, Greg, you don't know this, and I don't know this, and who knows how this whole league is going to shape out. I mean, hell, Zach could finish first place for all we know. Unlikely, but it could happen, and it's unlikely that you finish last, or not last, but in that bottom 3. But that's kind of just my thought I had right now, and I've kind of had the last couple weeks. But like I said, I want you to prove me wrong.
I'm just saying. I think that it is possible. It is very possible for me to have a very disappointing year this year, but I don't think it's going to be because the talent I've amassed skater-wise doesn't pan out. I mean, we're going to look at Nick Suzuki's being asked to do a lot more this year. Teuvo Teravainen is back. He played 14 games last year. That's not going to happen again. I think that I'm pretty set in terms of how my skaters are, but my goalies scare the hell out of me.
Yeah,
I feel like they're a sword of Damocles for me right now.
Yeah, let's make this an intellectual discussion, because obviously Nedeljkovic in Detroit isn't ideal this year or the next maybe 2 years. You got Shesterkin, who we hope stays healthy in an improving Rangers team. Cool, I like that goalie. You got Mrazek in a timeshare, and that's sort of where I'm at on the other half of that timeshare with Jack Campbell. Is it going to be a true 1A, 1B where they both start half the games? Yeah, is it going to be a win and stay in? Or, there's a lot of question marks there in terms of how are you going to get wins? How are you going to get saves? Because those, are 2 categories that you can't really afford to throw away when you have a Detroit Red Wings goalie. So my question is, are you considering adding a 4th goalie to kind of sharpen up, kind of back to that strategy discussion? Are you considering adding a 4th?
I mean, I especially have, now that Mike Hoffman's hurt, I've considered adding a 4th, but what I'm considering more than that is, I think if I make one big headline wave-making deal this year, it's going to be me adding a top 5 goalie.
Wow.
I'm going to put it out there. If any of you have a goalie who is a big talent and wants to trade him to a team that...
Mike Smith, coming your way.
Yeah, I'll give you Craig Smith for Mike Smith. We'll swap Smith.
Hey, there we go.
No, I'm putting it out there for those of you who listen to the podcast. If you've got a big name goalie you want to get rid of and maybe get a little richer on the defenseman end, get a little richer on the prospect end, I have the means to pay, and I very well will have the motive. So let's get that out there.
Yeah. No,
totally.
I think
I said, Greg, all the best for you and your team. I hope you finish better.
It's like a get well card.
Like I said, that wasn't meant to be like a knife or anything, or like a complete diss.
No, it turned into a
You're
pretty...
walking that back further than I walked back the evil comment.
Pretty interesting couple of hot takes here. No, this is good. This is fun, interesting discussion. Good content.
Yeah, we are out here making content on Who Cares You Suck.
Content creation.
Totally.
But no.
Well, we should probably get ready to wrap this episode up. Andrew, last thoughts?
My last thoughts are matchup 6, Greg v. Parker, is going to be a barn burner. But I think pretty much a summary of all these season projections is that we have no idea what's going to happen this season. Because,
honest to God,
if
couldn't have said it better myself.
If we go out to the if counter, we're clocking into the 400s here on how many times we pose a hypothetical. If Shesterkin gets hurt, if Mike Smith continues to post those numbers, if for someone on every team. What I can say is, repeating what we know already happened. And last year, we had 5 teams finish within 1 game of each other. And what that spells to me is an awesome season of Dynasty hockey in store. Absolutely. But before we do that, let's get into our Week 1 predictions. We can't close up without projecting Week 1, so we'll do this pretty quickly. And this idea was taken from the Dynasty Baseball Pitcher the Hitter podcast greats Cam Kane, Sahil Shah. We're going to do our own predictions, and we're going to make it public to the league this year, see if everybody else can compete in the week-to-week and make the most correct picks. The difference is, if you call a tie and get it wrong, you don't get a half point. And you don't get a half point if they tie. You have to be on the money with the actual result, but you don't have to guess the score. So, with that in mind, are you two ready?
Week 1 predictions. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Matchup 1. October 12th to 17th. Now, this is a short week. Anything can happen. Matchup 1. Yuki versus Parker. Team CCM versus Jesse's Girls. Parker Bach, who you got?
I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's my team. It's my boys. Jesse's Girls. We rebranded. We're new. We're here. It's our first week to come out flying. I got Jesse's Girls.
All right. Greg.
I got Jesse's Girls too. I don't think Yuki's team has a viable path to compete with a top 3 team without Jack Eichel.
Yeah, I'm going to take the girls as well. But I do want to see Yuki's team put up a fight. I think in a short week, if Yuki, I think this is Yuki's best chance at upsetting Parker because it's a short week. Anything can happen. You only really get like 5 days worth of hockey. So anything can happen without those last 2 days, but I think the girls are going to take it. Matchup 2, Trent, and Ohio State Fuckeyes versus Artemis Bredman. Parker Bach.
First again, I got Bredman. Bredman looking good, off a big championship year in year 1. I think right back where we started, Andrew's team's going to win by a mile.
I'm going to go with the upset special here.
Wow.
Trent likes to play up to good teams, and
true.
Everyone knows the Breadmen are a good team. And remember, you started pretty slow last year. It's not outside the realm of possibility you have another slow start. I think Ohio State does what it does best and plays good teams close and tough, and I think they've got a decent shot at pulling it out.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows I won the championship, and now everybody knows that I'm also 0-1 against the Fuckeyes. So you never know what can happen in Dynasty
Andrew,
hockey.
Who you got?
But I got to take myself. I think a Week 1 loss is going to be demoralizing. Joel Farabee handed me that Week 1 loss last year, and I sure as hell hope that, Cody Glass doesn't hand me the Week 1 loss. But now that I'm saying it, it's coming into existence. So we'll see. I got the Bredman here. But let's look at the third matchup. We got Team Shaw, managed by Evan Tarian, versus Jerma Carr, managed by none other than Zach Betron. This is an interesting matchup. Two of the lottery teams last year. But Parker, what are your thoughts?
This is a toss up. It really is. I'm gonna go on a whim here. I think Jeremy Carr. I think they get the win. I'm gonna go Zach. First game of his season by himself. Not taking over a team in the middle of a season. I think he's gonna win Week 1.
Fresh start, bold prediction. On to you, Greg.
Yeah, Team Shaw's got Scheifele out for a little bit after he did a thing you're not supposed to do in the playoffs.
That's true.
So I think Jermicar can capitalize on that. I think Zach can show up and show out, prove to everyone that he belongs in this league with a strong start to week one.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Greg. I'm gonna go with Team Shaw. Love to see the upset, out of Jermicar, but I think the offense on Team Shaw, even without Mark Scheifele, is a little too hot to handle. But the goalies again, a big question mark on both sides actually. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Let's head into the third matchup. We got Evil, managed by Evil, and we got the team of Hi, Mr. Meeseeks, owned by the great Alex Fisher. What are we thinking here? Upset, or are we thinking the scorned runners up rather, come out hot out of the gates?
I'm gonna go Evil, and I'll tell you why. Varlamov doesn't look to be available.
Oh.
For Alex's team right now.
Is he going to miss the start of the season? Or is he just missing
what it's sounding like?
Game? Well, let's check into the news. Oh my goodness, that could change a lot. Dealing with a nagging injury, raising doubts about his availability for opening night. That would, if Varlamov starts out,
that would take a hit.
Ooh, you hate to see that. Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I've got Evil. Give me Evil week one.
Yeah, if you've got a premium player injured the week you face Evil, your odds drastic go down, to quote one of our great thinkers, Scott Steiner. If Varlamov is out, I'm sorry, Alex, I don't see a way you can compete against a fully armed and operational Evil.
Yep. Give me Evil. Yeah. You can't lose your number one goaltender. It really sucks. It's out of your control, and I hope Varlamov gets a lot better, because that's really going to be one of the core players for Alex this year. So 3 for Evil on week 1. Matchup 5 out of 6. We got the Hanson brothers, managed by Zach Rowland, going up against Ratatouille, managed by the Kane.
Let's go Hanson brothers here. I think Hanson brothers. I'm gonna go back to the goalies again. I think he's got the better goalies. Grubauer, I think he'll get probably the first couple starts for Seattle.
I don't know how many times they play. Obviously, they play on Tuesday, but they'll probably play again.
Yeah, totally. But
they do have the Knights.
I like.
Oh, they have 3 matchups.
Yeah,
they have the Knights, the Predators, and the Blue Jackets. So I think Grub can sneak out a couple of wins. I think you're right there.
I do. So that's why I like Zach's team. I think the Hanson brothers are going to take this one.
Greg, what you got?
I got to go with Cam. I think that he's got a great set of forwards. I think that the goalie gap is going to be less of an issue on a short week. I mean, who knows? You might get a couple good showings out of John Gibson and the Ducks, and that might be all you need. So I think that the goalie issue is going to be much less of an issue, and Cam's going to outshow that with his talented skaters. And
Connor McJesus carry the team in week 1.
You know what? Let's go crazy and say it's a Brad Marchand hat trick that carries into victory.
Wow. Well, we'll all stay tuned for that and give Greg an extra cookie if he's correct. Or perhaps a sody pop. Yes.
Yippee!
All right, Andrew, what we got?
I'm gonna take Ratatouille, and the reason is because I cannot doubt Connor McDavid. I think Zach Rowland's got some goalie issues he needs to work out, and I think there are a couple question marks.
That's only good for us
as he starts the season. So Connor McDavid gonna be
McDavid's producing,
cooking it up with Hyman and Jesse.
Is cooking.
Yeah. So I'll take Cam in the season opener, and finally we got
game of the week, the headgear selection.
The headgear selection. Do we put on the Captain Chara's boarding party captain's hat, or do we put on the Infinity Strome's gauntlet?
Infinity Gauntlet.
Do we put the gauntlet on his head, on our heads? What are we thinking here? Who's putting on the glove and who's putting on the hat?
Oh boy, this is a tough one. I'll let you guys go first. You guys have a set answer on this one.
Greg, what you got?
Let's go, Greg. I think I know who you're gonna pick.
Well, the Infinity Stromes are a good, solid team that's being tasked with a breakout candidate by none other than the brilliant mind of Greg. But, not so fast, my friend. I say, give me that pirate hat. I think the boarding party's going to be going on a couple coastal raids to start week 1. Joel Farabee going to get a strong start again, going to lead the league in points by the end of the week. And give me that pirate hat.
That's Greg Lee Severin.
I thought it was Lee Corso.
Donning the pirate hat. That might have been Lee Corso.
Good to see you, Lee.
Lee, coming in with the headgear.
I have no idea who I am or how I got on this podcast.
The headgear pick of the week.
I'm going to press the coach at some point.
By Lee Corso.
Where are all the college student signs? I love those things.
Lee, thank you for being here. We're going to have to ask you to keep coming back onto the show. I appreciate you coming in with your pick, throwing on the captain's hat. Parker, what you got to say to that? You throwing on the hat or the glove?
I gotta say, not so fast. Greg,
Twice. He's going to do it twice.
I'm gonna say give me Greg in a close one.
Wow.
Actually,
no, he doesn't.
Come on.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go our first tie of the year, week 1.
Oh.
Ooh.
I don't hate that. This is going to be a close matchup. All right, so we got one for the hat, one for the tie.
I'm wearing the gauntlet and the pirate hat.
No, you're putting on you're putting on a tie. So that leaves me to be bold, and I'm gonna put on the glove. I think Mikko Rantanen and the Avs come out cooking. I think David Pastrnak sets up each one of Brad Marchand's hattie goals. And I just think the Stromes are going to out-offense the boarding party. But I'm also being a bit contrarian here, and really, I just wanted to put on the glove. So.
Wow. Snap your fingers then. End the episode.
Yeah.
It's said on both sides by my fellow podcast hosts. I just, you know what?
You picked Trent to upset me. I don't want to hear it.
I think I just got to go start my own podcast with Corso and John Madden next week.
Talking hockey with Corso.
Talking hockey with Lee Corso. No, that was great. But thank you for listening in to the first set of predictions. And the last episode before we start the Dynasty Hockey regular season. Concluding remarks, Greg,
Indeed.
Parker, what are you guys thinking?
It's gonna be a fun season. It's gonna be like we've kind of said. It's gonna be interesting. I think it could go about a million different ways. I'm excited. 22 weeks of hockey coming up. Get buckled in. Get strapped in. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great year. I look forward to proving all the doubters and haters in this very room wrong.
Yeah.
Andrew,
wow.
What do you got to say?
I'm stoked. I've been thinking about this every day instead of doing my work, and I'm excited to continue thinking about it every day instead of doing my work. So here's to a new season, and here's to 22 weeks, or 22 matchups because the little Olympic break, but 22 great matchups of Dynasty hockey. Anything can happen. A lot of these teams, all of these teams are just so good, and it's going to be a lot of fun as we start heading into the winter sports. So thanks y'all for listening.
I want to close out by saying good luck to everyone.
Yeah.
All those listeners coming in. Hope to see some good matchups, good trades, good fun, and good banter. And we all know what that sound means. We are out of time on today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening in. Apologies to Kenny Hodge. We didn't have enough time for you today, so we'll have to get you next time. Make sure you tune in for that. And thank you so much for tuning in to the M-SABR Dynasty Hockey Podcast. Who cares? You suck. We'll see you next time.